Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge, end of the world edition. At least according to some people, end of the world. I doubt it, folks. But the President of the United States has set an 8 p.m. Eastern Time deadline for Iran. What will happen and what are the markets doing ahead of that? We've got the 411 for you on today's Rebel's Edge. Yeah, it's probably not a lot of times you get to chuckle about the end of the world, Pete, or the end of civilization, as the president was saying about Iran. And he's talking about ending their civilization. We all wish that at times the president would couch his words a little differently, Pete. Perhaps, not say so much about the end of civilization in Iran, because obviously the 90 million people that are living there or more are pretty good folks, and Persians, which is a background that Pete and I kind of share with those guys. Armenians and Persians are like this. But he's talking about the mullahs and the Republican Guard in Iran. So I wish he would define it a little better at times, Pete, but he doesn't ask me to be his speechwriter, I
guess. He hasn't tapped my shoulder either, John, but as I've said millions of times about, the Fed and some of the commentary there, it'd be fine if they just stopped a little bit sooner. But with the president, he gets a little bit, colorful and gets pretty interesting, and, things do change. But I'll tell you what, the entertainment value when he says, "Where do you work?" and they tell him, and he says, "Fake news." I mean, it is like nothing I've ever seen before to watch some of those pressers, but they're worth watching. I'll tell you that they are. There's entertainment there.
Well, what kind of signal, Pete, are you getting from the VIX, which today, obviously ahead of the war, the war is ongoing, but ahead of tonight's strike, which seems imminent, what kind of movement are you seeing out of people trying to hedge?
Right. And it sure is interesting, John, the fact that it almost immediately bounced back up towards 27. We were in the 24s yesterday, and you can see it on the charts there. And it's something we're going to be wrestling with until we're not. And what I mean by that is not trying to be funny about it, but I mean, the reality is, obviously tonight is a big night, and people will be following this very, very closely. I would think they should be, at least. And he talked about the time and everything else. So interesting to see, the volatility index kind of spike up. It hasn't really moved a whole heck of a lot. It spiked up towards 27, eased back a little bit just off of that. And that's where we find ourselves, John. So is there a fear factor here? Yeah, there's a fear factor here. S&P, however, when you take a look over at that, you would think this thing would be closer to 1%, and probably higher than 1%, but it's not. It's moved about 0.5%. So it's not even, now it's moved a little bit closer to 1% because I'm taking a quick peek at it, and it's made a bit of a drop. But nonetheless, either way, John, there is a lot more fear than there is the actual numbers adding up to be there. So it's going to be something, I think, that we won't be able to get past this until at 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, and we shall see, Pete, if indeed the president does decide to destroy a whole bunch of bridges and electrical generation, power plants and so forth. We will see probably just after 8 o'clock, if not before then, if they don't have some sort of settlement. I have no idea why they wouldn't settle, Pete. I mean, I really don't. In all honesty, they have no Navy anymore. They've got some, drone boats and some boats that they can fire at tankers and things like that from. But, it is not even a fight anymore in terms of they're almost defenseless. So I really don't know why they would elect to let the president inflict that kind of damage on that country. But we'll see at 8 o'clock tonight or before.
Yeah.
So what about prediction exchanges? Well, as you might imagine, a lot of predictions are being made right now about WTI, which is West Texas Intermediate, which is at its highest level in a while and holding basically over $110 to the barrel. I would point out, Pete, that in the Arab Spring under President Obama, we had 5 months straight of oil over, I think it was over $110 per barrel, Pete. 5 months. And to my friends like Carl Quintanilla that just want to point out, oh, we can't afford gasoline. Again, Carl, did you say that during Obama's term? Probably not. And did you say that under Biden's term? Probably not. But in fact, I've challenged them to both produce tweets that they may have put out about that at that time, Pete. But we both know that they were running cover for both Obama and Biden during that time. But oh my God, even though the Straits of Hormuz are effectively closed because of this war, we've had 1 month where part of the month we've been over 100. Nonetheless, wisdom is justified by all her children, Pete. Which way would you go on the prediction market?
You know, it's so difficult, John. I mean, like you said, you're surprised that they haven't already just said, all right, let's sit down and talk. You know, I mean, and I think that would be something that could be pretty productive. However, they have chosen not to do that. And so it puts us in this 8 o'clock tonight deal, right? I mean, and that's, you know, it makes it that much more difficult, I think, to make those kind of bets. I'm looking at where WTI is, and like you said, it spiked up pretty strong today. It's like another 3% or more to the upside. So something to keep a very close eye on. But you know what? This is just such a coin flip to me that I can't even give you an answer to that, John, because it all is dependent upon what we would think would be the right decision, and whether or not they do, that's going to be very, very telling, I think, over the next couple of days, because this won't be just something overnight. I think this would be something that, you know, if you're going to blast somebody the way that the president has talked about, I would think that that's going to just be over and over and over and keep going for a little while. And then at some point in time, we will see the price of WTI shift around, probably back down. But it may be a little higher even than it is right now in the short term.
Well, let's talk, Pete, about health insurers, because the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services are going to raise the average Medicare Advantage payment by almost 2.5%, which is more than people were counting on. And for that reason, boy, you've got a host of stocks in that space, Pete. Some of them moving up double digits so far today.
Yeah, I mean, United Health up pretty strong today. Humana, these are big name companies, right? I mean, look at the movement that we're getting out of these. Those are technology type moves, right? A lot of the time, not health insurance, but in this case, it is. Elevance Health is another one. You know, then there's some upgrades out there as well, John. Some of the analysts who are lifting things up, it makes some sense to me. They're talking about that could produce about $13 billion in additional funding. So you can understand why these things are moving the way they are to the upside. Will it hold up there? I think it probably likely could and should, just based upon what we're seeing here. So 2.5%, it just shows you that can be a very, very large number, and certainly is affecting just about everybody in the industry right now, including CVS, for instance.
Well, let's then hit, Pete, a company that we haven't talked about much in the past, United Microelectronics. So it's a semiconductor foundry. So the company provides these integrated circuits and production thereof. They had, Pete, some pretty strong news. They released unaudited. So in other words, this isn't their, in air quotes, official quarterly report, but the sales figures for January alone revealed a year-over-year increase of a little over 5%, which is pretty strong. because semiconductors have sort of been an important part of our economy for, well, a long time.
Yeah.
And January's revenues were pretty darn strong. So to see this stock move into the upside by about what, 5% or more today, that's why we're seeing that.
Yeah, and as you talked about, John, just you look at some of the year-over-year numbers and how positive that looks for these guys. Their net sales, that looks really solid. The global demand for the semiconductors, we all know about that. I mean, it's pretty massive. So this is a company that's had a nice big shot to the upside, up what, 5% or something like that today. That's something that I think is definitely worth keeping a very close eye on. And you know what? You want some resiliency? This is where it is. I mean, it truly is. And like you said, not a name that a lot of people are even familiar with for all the right reasons. And it is over there in the Far East. So it's something that people are going to be talking about, I think, for a while. And do they have what it's going to take to be able to deliver? And I think that they will. And I think that's why this stock really has promised to go a little bit further than it has already. Obviously, it's just one day, but you can understand why this is a name that actually could continue to go to the upside in a big way.
Well, let's take another stock in the AI space, Pete. Obviously, semiconductors are part of it, and AVGO, or Broadcom, AVGO, signed a long-term deal with Google to develop AI chips for them. So Broadcom is a darling. It has certainly performed well over time. And today it's up another, what, 4%, Pete? If I look back at it a year ago, the stock a year ago today was 185. Now it's $325 a share. Yeah. So again, you want alpha or outperformance, Pete? You find it in stocks like this that are involved in AI. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I was looking back at that same number, John. I wanted to see what they were in the last year, and they're up 109%. Not so bad. And then year to date, it's only up 6%, or down 6%, actually. A little bit of a hit, but it's been interesting to see how well these guys have performed. You talked about that deal. That's a long-term deal. They're talking about a deal that extends all the way to 2031. So it's interesting, and this is something between them and Google. I think it's a great move. A huge boost for revenue is what they're saying in terms of what it stands in terms of Broadcom. I'm really, really impressed. And, you know, Google, the next generation AI, they're getting these racks. And, John, that's like I said, through 2031. So this is a pretty big deal and an extended deal out into the future as well that I think is going to serve both probably very nicely.
Well, here's one that's a real head scratcher, I think, Pete. This Mach Natural Resources, MNR, down double digits today. But can you imagine a better space to be in than an independent oil and gas company?
Right.
And the answer is probably not right now, not with crude oil running the way it is, not with nat gas being in as much demand as it is in. However, they're doing a secondary, right, Pete? And that secondary means, of course, that people who owned it last night are going to be joined by a bunch of people they don't know, perfect strangers buying the stock, and that widening out of the shares outstanding and in free float now will be one of the reasons, in fact, the reason that this stock is under pressure today.
Yeah, and you know, on top of that, John, even though, like you said, should be in the right place and everything, and it's down, what, 10% today? Now it's still up 15% year to date, so it's still in positive territory. Of course, it should, based upon all the backdrop of what we've got going on. They do have when you start looking at the fundamentals, John, there are a couple of things that, you know, are a little surprising to me, that there are some negatives that they've got. They've got a lot of debt. They've got a cash burn that's incredibly high. You know, so there are a few things that I think you kind of look at that and go, that's not so great. That's not so great. And then all of a sudden you've got this secondary of 9 million common. That's something I think, like you said, all of a sudden that comes into play and, you know, kind of gets a little bit tougher for, I think, this thing to actually show up the way it needs to. And the midstream assets, the production, it's oil, it's natural gas, it's natural gas liquids, it's all those things. That is the right place to be. But when you look at the fundamental side of this particular company and Mach Natural Resources, you can understand why it's getting hit today, John. I mean, even though right place, all of those things, I think it makes some sense when you kind of dig deeper into this thing and look at it and say, all right, fundamentally, they've got some issues.
Well, hopefully they can resolve those, Pete, and hopefully the money helps them meet the demand, because the demand is through the roof.
Yeah.
And if they've got fields in Oklahoma that they can tap into, because it's an Oklahoma-based company, if they've got fields that are full of oil and gas and NGLs, this should be a very good time for them. So I don't blame them for raising money right now, but this could create an opportunity if it slides much more, because basically the low at the end of last year, Pete, was right in the $11-ish range. Mm-hmm. And today with this drop, it's in $12-ish range. Again, I would think this could be a $15 to $20 stock if they are able to pull out more of what they've basically got locked in underground right now. Mm-hmm. But time will tell.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hit sports, Pete. And of course, we have a new national champion. Michigan for basketball beat UConn. And there was a kid, Pete, that was at North Carolina. And he was pretty instrumental in Michigan's road to the Final Four and winning the Final Four, the Final Two at that point for the national championship. Let's get one of our favorite guys to break it down for us.
He's the
One
best.
needs to check on the UNC fans immediately, because after what we just witnessed, I'm not sure they can ever recover. Michigan guard Elliot Cadeau just won Most Outstanding Player of the Final Four and helped Michigan win their first natty in 37 years. But if you knew just how this man got here, you wouldn't believe it. And by the way, if you'd like elite sports content like this, make sure you're following. Now, in case you didn't know, Cadeau was once a top 15 recruit for Carolina, who they had extremely high hopes for. But because he literally couldn't make a shot during his 2 years there, they told him he wasn't good enough, and they ran him out of town after last season. Then guess what? He transfers to Michigan, and this season has a complete renaissance, shooting 38% from three on double the attempts. Well, if that wasn't enough for UNC fans, he put the final dagger in their heart tonight against UConn. Bro showed off the entire bag. Watch this up and under. That's bag. Everyone at Carolina said he'd never be able to shoot. Does this look like a man who can't shoot to you? They also said he'd never be a real point guard. How about this pass inside? That looks like a point guard to me. The man not only had a game-high 19 points, but after the game, he went on live and had a little more fun with the UNC fans. I'm sure he's been waiting to say this since the day he left. Someone needs to...
He did. He lit him up, Pete. And
understandably.
Yeah, well, some guys need, I'm one of them, some guys need the haters to do well. It helps to have the haters. The haters really light a fire under you, because they either A, they don't think you're good enough, or B, they just don't like you the way you look, you know, bald-headed guy with a ponytail or whatever. But this kid, my gosh, UNC, they didn't have any time for this guy, but Michigan, all kinds of time for this guy, and he's going to get paid, Pete.
My first thought, John, last night, I was watching the game, really excited about it, you know, and you know me, I mean, I'm not a Michigan guy, but I am a Big Ten guy. And so I was pulling for Michigan last night. I liked what they did. I like how they built up the team. A lot of people were complaining, John. They were all like, well, you know, they just bought the team. Well, yeah, but that's what college sports has become. So, I mean, tell me something that everybody in the world doesn't know. Well, there's NIL, and there's this, and there's that, and these guys are making money. And we're going to talk about that in a second as well. But as far as the Big Ten is concerned, John, that is the most dominant conference in the country. And if you think I'm wrong, let's see. Who won the national title in football? Was it Miami? No, it wasn't Miami. No, it was it? It was Indiana.
Red and white.
So Indiana, goes out there and all they do is win the national championship. The UCLA women, yes, UCLA is in the Big Ten for everybody. Women basketball, well, they seem to do pretty well as well, John. The women's basketball team at UCLA, national champions, not so bad. Michigan, national champions, not so bad. I mean, so when you look at this and everybody always, the SEC this or the ACC is that, right? SEC for football, ACC for basketball, and all these, they're wrong, number one. And number two, I think it's just impressive to me that the Big Ten has really started to light it up. And I don't think it's over. I don't think this is like a one and done type year. I'm looking around and you know what? It does come down to, are you able to raise money? I mean, not you don't have to have the most money, but can you raise money? Because if you can raise some money, you have an opportunity out there. And you know what? There are guys who are willing to go to Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, some of those places that, normally wouldn't have, the opportunity to even get some of these guys, but they're getting them. And, it's just absolutely amazing. What do you think? What do you think about the Big Ten's dominance? Because I love it just because all we ever hear about is the SEC, right? I got nothing against them, by the way. I'm just saying everybody and their brother always says, the SEC is unbelievable.
Well, and, you're going to see in the draft, which comes up, by the way, folks, in a little over 2 weeks, we get the NFL draft, 3 weeks, I guess. But when we get that, you're going to see like 5 guys from Ohio State go number in the first round.
Yeah.
You're going to see several of those Indiana players, including, of course, the overall number one, go. So there are so many beasts out there, Pete. And the SEC has their share, but I think it definitely tilts towards the Big Ten having more talent and more competitive teams. So I would not disagree with you at all.
Yeah. Well, it's just been an impressive thing to watch because for a while their SEC did dominate. Well, maybe the tables have turned enough that now it's a Big Ten domination, and I think that's exactly what it is. All right, John. Money is flowing, right? We talk about NIL, and everybody was bitching and moaning about this whole thing with Michigan, and they paid for their team, which is, like we said, ridiculous. But here's just some of the numbers that's happening in college sports, just so people understand. Hey, look, it is a pro sport. This is no longer just a college sport. This is pro sports, I should say. But 2021, top athletes made extra cash. That was really what it was, John. It wasn't a huge number, but they started, it started it up. By 2023, 10 NCAA athletes were getting over $1 million of NIL money. Okay. Now, 2026, 50 athletes earn more than $1 million. Some of them have upwards of $5 million. And it's just amazing. And I have one example I wanted to throw out to you. In 2024, Ohio State, they had a budget of $20 million for the NIL. 2026, this year, $40 million. So, yeah, this is professional sports, guys. This is real. This is what these guys – there's guys, John. We got a guy at the University of Minnesota, and I won't say his name, but he's a defensive end who's very good. Led the conference in sacks last year. He didn't go to the NFL. You know why he didn't? He's primed and ready to go. I mean, I stood next to the kid, John. He is – exactly what you'd be looking at for an edge rusher, right? I mean, he's probably 6'4", 6'4.5", probably weighs about 270, really, really great body shape. He's strong as an ox, and he's got a good speed to come around the corner and all that kind of stuff. He can make more money still at the college level than he can at the NFL level for his first couple of years anyway, with the rookie contract and all the rest of it. I mean, it's amazing how much money some of these guys are making in that whole thing. So yeah, when you're making $1.5 million, $2.5 million, $3.5 million, $4 million, whatever it is, there's real money in this sport now for these guys and gals, but more of the guys. It's men's basketball, men's football. Yes, the women's sports do get a lot of money as well. You've got gymnastics, you got basketball, and others. So this is something that's just part of what we do now, right? I mean, The only thing I would say is they need to have you and I, John, show up at all these campuses and say, hey, here's how you've got to do this, because you know what? You got to pay taxes. Did you know you got to pay taxes? Yes, you got to pay taxes. And you've got to do a lot of things with that money that are a lot smarter than just going out and buying the greatest car or vehicle or whatever you want. You better be a little bit smarter with your money is what I would say. And I think we could help out on that.
Yep, we could. Well, I did a quick search, Pete, when I heard that this was your topic today. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that in 1997 and 1998, the NFL salary cap was what Ohio State's is right now. Think about that, folks. So, in other words, the NFL, and I don't mean all 32 teams, or if there were 30 teams back then, whatever, but I mean, each team has a salary cap, and how it's determined is, of course, they get the TV contract. That's the big number that they get. And by collective bargaining agreement, the players in the NFL get, I think, 51%, Pete, of that TV revenue. It's either 51 or 52. Some of you might say, well, that doesn't seem fair. The owners should get the lion's share. Well, the owners don't share a lot in the skyboxes and some of the merch and things like that. So this was a negotiation. I think it's pretty close to 50-50 between the players and the owners. But in other words, Pete's Minnesota Vikings in 1997 had a cap of 40 million. Well, that's what Ohio State's cap is this year. Now I realize, it's more than a quarter century since then, but that was professional sports. Yeah. And now these guys are just going to go zoom right past it, Pete. We're going to eventually see guys, that are pumping 100 mil. You watch, especially with their TV contracts and things like that, because again, that's where the money is. Yeah. Live sports, we've beat that horse to death almost on this show, but live sports, I think live sports in general was like 96 or 95 of the top 100 watched shows, Pete, in the last year. And if you break it down into pro and college football, it's virtually all of it. So people there is no Friends or no Seinfeld or anything else that outdraws live sports. It just is what it is. And that's where the money is, live sports on TV, because it matters and because you can bet on it then. And once it's over, you can watch it on replay, but it's not the same. Seinfeld will do better in reruns than the NFL will, Pete.
Yeah, they will. Well, I'll tell you what, it just shows you money, money, money. And since we're the money guys, we wanted to let people know a little bit about, how this thing works and all the rest of it. And you know what? The players do need to have somebody, and the schools really don't want to have to do it, John, because I think then they become liable. So it's interesting how they've got to figure all these things out with all the money that these guys are getting. I mean, this is business that starts when these guys, 17, 18 years old, go off to college. And, they've got these contracts are absolutely outrageous, but great for the guys. I love it.
Yep. And there's a lot out there. And more to come, Pete. More to come. All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. We will be back with another Rebel's Edge tomorrow at 1:00. We'd encourage you one more time to check out the program with SIBO Global Markets that we'll be doing the 23rd and 24th of April. If you go to marketrebellion.com, you'll see it right there on the front page. You could join us still. There are a few seats left, and there are obviously virtual seats as well. So check that out, 23rd, 24th of April at SIBO Global Markets right here in Chicago. Pete, we'll see him tomorrow, right? What time?
See you tomorrow, 1:00, 1 Eastern time.
Bang.
How fun is it going to be, that trip to Chicago, for everybody to be able to get to Chicago and actually go to the trading floors and see how it actually works and all the rest of that? And that's something that I think it's April 22nd to the 24th, something like that.
Yep, the VIP party starts 22nd, but the actual in-person on the floor, and there's still a couple seats left, they tell me, folks, 23rd and 24th of April, SIBO Global Markets in Chicago. You can go virtually or you can come in person. I recommend the in person because to see that floor while it's still there is special. So if you're somebody who's trading right now and you'd like to see what it's like down on the floor, by all means, this is a can't miss event.
Yep. Such a cool area. It's such a fun, so much nostalgia and everything else. I mean, that place is fantastic. I love it. Still, I miss it. I miss it still to this day.